إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهديه الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ونبيه ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. After praising Allah Azza wa Jal, who is deserving of more praise than anyone can ever muster, we ask him to send his finest salutations and peace and blessings upon his messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and we testify that none is worthy of our worship but Allah and Allah alone, without any partners, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was the seal of his prophets and his messengers subhanahu wa ta'ala. After reminding myself and my brothers and sisters of the taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jal, that Allah Azza wa Jal rewards the most for this taqwa and does not accept deeds without this taqwa and does not have mercy except on its people, this taqwa, I begin to say that I'm sure many of you have heard and continue to hear people becoming pessimistic and jaded and very negative in their language about the year 2020. They say that the year is not even halfway over and all of this is happening. They say that 2020 is cancelled. They say we have to purge it from our memories. It's a nightmare. It will soon pass. We just have to forget this year altogether. And this obviously is not the way of the believer. The believer is optimistic in Allah Azza wa Jalla, always assumes the best of him and does not curse time, because the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا تسبوا الدهر أنا الدهر أقلب الليل والنهار. Do not curse the age, because I am the age. I am the reason for every age being as it is. I'm the one who alternates night and day. I'm behind it all. And so I came across recently a writer who very eloquently spoke to that Islamic concept. And I'll summarize for you, which he mentions that what if 2020, seemingly going from bad to worse, is actually the best year ever? In hindsight, what if we look back and they say hindsight is always 2020? This is the year 2020. She says, and to use that, by the way, to use these little reasons and to make them a justification for your good assumptions of Allah is very Islamic. Just like when the Prophet ﷺ saw Suhail ibn Amr come as the ambassador for negotiations, he just clung to his name as a reason to be even more hopeful or renewed in their hopefulness of Allah Azza wa Jal. He said, قَدْ سَهُلَ أَمْرُكُمْ. Suhail has come, the guy whose name is Suhail. So your affair must become sahl soon. Sahl means easy. We have a breakthrough on our hands. And so this writer, she said, what if 2020 isn't canceled? What if 2020 is the year that we've actually been waiting for and we don't realize? What if it's the year that is so scary, so raw, so difficult, that it actually forces us with its discomfort to finally change? What if the sirens that 2020 made that were so loud will actually be the reason for us to waken from our slumber? Just one more week, just one more week, just one more week, then you feel like you're about to scream. You feel like the circumstances are cornering you perhaps in a very beautiful direction. We should think of that. What if it's going to force us to finally come together better than ever before, instead of pushing each other further apart, to commit to change, to become the change we want to be? And so, bi'idhnillah, for the believer especially, that has the right hopes in Allah, you need to realize that 2020 is not cancelled, should not be forgotten. We have to keep reiterating that. It's not a nightmare. It could be the year that we're most desperate for. And we just don't see it yet. Because Allah Azza wa Jal works in beautifully mysterious ways, doesn't He? And that's of the meanings, by the way, of Allah's name Al-Latif, which perhaps I'll speak on for the remainder of the khutbah. Allah, of His beautiful names, Al-Latif, subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is roughly translated as the subtle. He is subtle. But what does it mean? Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah, he says if you scan the Quran, you will realize that it has two meanings. He says, وَهُوَ اللَّطِيفُ بِعَبْدِهِ وَلِعَبْدِهِ وَاللُّطْفُ فِي أَوْصَافِهِ نَوْعَانِ. He says, He is latif, He is subtle, bi'abdihi, of His slave, meaning He is subtle in His knowledge regarding His slave. He knows, His knowledge enters and has access to every crevice of information, every unnoticeable aspect of His slave, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a description of His knowledge. He says, وَلِعَبْدِهِ, and He is subtle towards His slave, meaning in the way He deals with His slave, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, lutf, His subtleness, has those two qualities. بِخِبْرَةٍ, the acquaintedness He has of everything. وَمَوَاقِعِ الْإِحْسَانِ, He says, and in how He delicately places His kindness into their lives. Ways you don't detect, ways you cannot help but benefit from sometimes. And you know the story of the Quran, as so many scholars mentioned, that illustrate Allah's lutf, the lutf of Allah, more than anything else, the subtle nature of Allah, is the story of Yusuf alayhi salam for sure. Some of the scholars call it Surah Al-Lutf, the chapter that reflects Allah's subtleness, subhanahu wa ta'ala. As one of the scholars said, this is the story where we see an example so that we can extrapolate, we can extend it to our own personal lives. We can see how أَخْفَى الْمُلْكِ فِي ثِيَابِ الرِّقِّ, He hid the glory of kingdom that Yusuf alayhi salam having in the garbs of captivity, by putting him into the garbs of being a slave. The more you reflect on the subtle details of Yusuf alayhi salam's life, the more you can better understand the subtleness of Allah and His beautiful dealings. Like, you know, when you read Surah Yusuf, and we should all read it and reread it, and tonight, bi'idhnillah, we'll begin a study in our Friday night classes of Surah Yusuf. Every brand new event seems to be a step backwards, not forward. It seems to become more and more impossible for the dream that we begin with to actually happen. I mean, how can his parents and his brothers make sujood to him when his parents are older than him? We're supposed to be respecting elders. One of them is a prophet. His brothers are all older than him. They hate him. They conspire to kill him. They exported him as a slave, basically, to a faraway land. It just becomes more and more and more distant, the possibility of this happening. And then the plot thickens, it goes from bad to worse. We think 2020 is going from bad to worse. He winds up in a palace, and instead of being a palace slave, the lustful women frame him. And so he gets demoted to being perceived as some monster, some miscreant, some person that has no integrity, and he gets locked into the dungeons. And this continues to happen until somehow, decades later, he finds himself in the audience of the king, and all of the tragedies subside, and his father and the brothers come back into the story in a very subtle way, in a very organic way. He didn't go out to get them either. And that's why he says at the end of the story, alayhi salam, to his father, هَذَا تَأْوِيلُ الرُّؤْيَا. This is actually the dream. This is the unfolding, the outcome of the dream. قَدْ جَعَلَهَا رَبِّي حَقًّا. My Lord has made it a reality. And then he signs off on that testimony at the end of his statements by saying what? إِنَّ رَبِّي لَطِيفٌ لِمَا يَشَاءُ. My Lord is latif. He's so subtle towards whoever he wishes, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the one that took every single boulder that was in my way, every rock that I stumbled on, and used it. He was actually using it. I notice now in hindsight, the hidden hand of God, as they say, discreetly using it to build for me my glory. And so for those who are confident in their trust of Allah, their end will reflect the end of Yusuf alayhi salam. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ونبيه ورسوله. Thinking about the end of the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, you can imagine how many memories resurfaced in a completely different explanation in hindsight. Like Yusuf alayhi salam, he was probably thinking about so many things at once. Like, it was actually Al-Latif, the most subtle, who had to relocate me out of my home, where my father couldn't protect me from my brothers. That was from his lutf, subhanahu wa ta'ala, his subtle gentleness with me, and so that I could save the world from the proper strategic location, Egypt, when the drought hits. And what would have happened if Al-Latif, subhanahu wa ta'ala, had not subjected me to the scandal which sent me to prison? How else would I have ever met the butler of the king and showed him my skill in dream interpretation and had him owe me a favor? And if the butler of the king, after he got rescued, what if Al-Latif did not cause him to forget to mention me to the king until the king was desperate for a dream interpretation, so that it's not me needing the king anymore, the king now comes needing me, and I can demand now that he clear my name. I'm not just a person who can interpret dreams. I am trustworthy to be given the state office and save the world. And what if Al-Latif subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the way he exited prison, subhanAllah, one of the scholars, he said, with this I will close, I guess as a reminder that 2020 is not cancelled, and as also an invitation to study Surah Yusuf with us beginning this evening. He said when Allah Azza wa Jal wanted to extract Yusuf alayhi salam from prison, he could have caused the prison walls to just collapse and remove this noble prophet. He could have sent angels to pluck the souls of the tyrants, of the oppressors. He could have sent down a lightning bolt to shatter the iron lock on the cage. But he didn't do any of that, subhanahu wa ta'ala. What did he do? He inserted a dream, very simple, a dream into the heart, into the mind of a sleeping king for everything to come to fruition. Because he's Al-Latif, subhanahu wa ta'ala. He sends the greatest gifts your way in the most unnoticeable ways, in the most imperceptible of ways. And so may Allah give us confidence in him being Al-Latif and not buy into the narrative that we are living a nightmare. And may Allah make us a people of audition who hear his signs and his invitations when he extends them. And people of perception, the people that see his signs all around us and understand that he is the explanation of the world around us, not us who get to define and explain in a myriad of wrong ways. what the world is and how the world should be. Allahumma ameen. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا ربنا. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا، اغفر لجميع المسلمين والمسلمات، اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات، اللهم اشف مرضانا وارحم موتانا وعاف مبتلانا واعز الاسلام وانصر المسلمين. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا. ربنا إننا سمعنا مناديا ينادي للإيمان أن آمنوا بربكم فآمنا. ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. ربنا وآتنا ما وعدتنا على رسلك ولا تخزنا يوم القيامة إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله.